In the darkest stage of the pandemic, your daily briefings live from New York gave us hope, gave us clarity, gave us the truth, and gave us something that we were not getting from Washington: leadership.
Thank you for your leadership during these trying times. We are New York tough, smart, disciplined, united, and loving.
So lots of pats on the back there from Hollywood, Janice.
I think Mr. Cuomo would like to be a celebrity. He likes to surround himself with celebrities. He likes to do his book tour interviews with them. I say, Governor, go to Hollywood, because we would like a real leader who cares about his residents of New York State.
Now that is called a lady that is afraid of a leader. I watched his medical things. I prefer to watch what he did over everything that the CDC did with Pence and all of that. I felt that Cuomo brought it down home. The biggest problem that Cuomo had, the criticism, when you get into it, is that he ordered people back into the old people's homes, and that caused more deaths because of that. I'm not sure about that to say if that's true or not true, but several on Fox were saying that. This is the irresponsibility of Fox. Saying he wants celebrity is nonsense. He has already been asked to run for the president more than a few times. He didn't want to do it. He turned it down. His father did the same thing, Mario. And now his brother, Chris, the younger brother, is probably going to be targeted to come in the second term of Biden, in place of Biden, possibly. Biden is going to win the second term and step aside for someone like Chris Cuomo along with Harris being the president that way. That's probably how they're going to do it. But people aren't going to want to see Trump back in there. And if Trump becomes the nominee of the Republicans the second time, there's going to be hell to pay. There's going to be a lot of people upset on the Republican side, and the Democrats are going to be just on fire, and the independents as well. So, but let's watch Tucker a little bit here.
The security of our electronic voting machines. And this is a real issue, no matter who raises it or who tries to dismiss it out of hand as a conspiracy theory. Electronic voting is not as secure as traditional hand counting, period. It never will be as secure. Voters can see this because it's obvious, and it makes them nervous. And why wouldn't it make them nervous? Our leaders have given us every reason not to trust technology. The people now telling us to stop asking questions about voting machines are the same ones who claimed that our phones weren't listening to us. They lie. We all know that. Other countries understand it. They don't use electronic voting because they know it undermines confidence in democracy. A system cannot function if no one trusts the vote. And that's true here too, as we're finding out. Going forward, we need to find out exactly what happened in this month's presidential election. We need to find out no matter how long it takes the investigation to unfold or how much it costs. And once we get answers from that investigation, we ought to revert immediately to the traditional system of voting, the one that served our democracy for hundreds of years. What we're doing now is not working. That's an understatement. As of tonight, the state of New York still hasn't managed to count the votes in 5 House races thanks to mail-in voting. That's a disaster. Let's stop pretending that it's not. But at the same time, we shouldn't let our focus on voting machines distract us from all that happened earlier this month. The 2020 presidential election was not fair. No honest person would claim that it was fair. On many levels, the system was rigged against one candidate and in favor of another. And it was rigged in ways that were not hidden from view. We all saw it happen. The media openly colluded with the Democratic nominees. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refused to explain what they would do if they were elected. That's never happened before in any presidential election in American history, but the media allowed them to do it. At the same time, beginning in the spring, Democrats used our public health emergency for nakedly partisan ends. They punished Trump supporters for trying to gather, but they exempted their own activists, rioters and vandals from BLM and Antifa, from the COVID lockdowns entirely. They said this out loud. The restrictions they did enforce crushed America's small businesses, the heart of the Republican Party. And yet they made their own donors fantastically richer. Jeff Bezos alone saw his net worth jump by more than $70 billion during the pandemic. Then Democrats used the coronavirus to change our system of voting. They vastly increased the number of mail-in ballots because they knew their candidates would benefit from less secure voting. And they were right. They used the courts to neutralize the Republican Party's single most effective get-out-the-vote operation, which for generations had been the National Rifle Association. Not enough has been written about this, but anyone on the ground saw it. Thanks to legal harassment from the left, the NRA played a vastly reduced role in this election, and that made a huge difference in swing states like Pennsylvania and others. But above all, Democrats harnessed the power of big tech to win this election. Virtually all news and all information in the English-speaking world travels through a single company, Google.
Not totally separated from the backdrop of one of the worst calamities to...
I want to go back to that. Now we've mail-in ballots are physically filled out ballots and are scanned for what's in them. This is not you going to a machine and tapping in your vote. This is not mechanical voting or automatic voting of that sort, like you do with Las Vegas. You know what happens when you go to Las Vegas? You make a bet, you get a copy of what you bet on. And you can, if you don't get the right money or whatever you were supposed to get, you can file a complaint off that single tab saying, I was cheated by that machine or that palace that handles that. This is what Tucker's not telling you here. He's saying, oh, it's mail-in ballots, it's a corruption, you've got to stop it, you've got to be in person. There's a lot of reasons to be in person and not be in person. I personally agree with him. I would go in person if I could. There are people who can't. My granddaughter's in Switzerland, she wanted to vote. She had to have her mother vote for her. So is that illegal? Has her mother voted for her? I mean, there are reasons you do things that are perfectly understandable. Are you going to have to argue everything in court? Largely the problem is poor people have the biggest workloads. They have 3 jobs. They're going to do mail-in ballot. And they were helped to do that in Georgia especially. Stacey Abrams, the gal who ran for governor, who nearly won the governorship of Georgia, she did a mail-in ballot thing for the poor people. And it facilitated that, the ballots to be counted that way. There's machines that are able to do that just fine. The Postmaster General was the only question mark. Would he screw up the voting for everybody that was doing mail-in? Now, Republicans did mail-in ballots too. They were encouraged to do that. They didn't just the Republicans didn't just stay at home to vote on their precincts. So anybody who thinks it's only one side or the other, and Tucker tried to leave that impression that they were screwed because the only ones that did by mail-in were the Democrats. There were women who voted by mail-in who were Republicans, and most of the time, the male voters that were in communities, they would show up at the polls. I voted on election day myself. I would rather do that than do a mail-in, but I don't think it should be prohibited. But Tucker seems to think unless his side wins, that somehow they're cheated. And this is Fox telling, dear Donald, we still love you. You'll still put me in the White House when you get elected in 2024, won't you? Just like Hannity. Hannity, he does that. He does that all the time. He assures himself he'll have a job down the road, if you have a job down the road, that I want, if I can be part of that. Oh, Newsmax. Oh, that's what they're doing. They're getting ready for Newsmax, aren't they? That's not going to be fun. He's not going to be on it. How long would you say he's going to be on Fox? That's the question. How long, when Newsmax gets going, or the Trump channel gets going, how long will these guys stay on Fox? And what will Fox do? That's going to be a very interesting story. I think it's an overstatement by Tucker, and then concluding it the way he did, definitely. It's just dishonest, but it's kind of a foxy way to do things. Subscribe if you find it interesting. If you disagree, please say so. Don't. But give me an argument other than Trump didn't, he was cheated, he was stolen. Don't make that whiny stuff. All the lawsuits that went forward were thrown out by Republican judges mostly. There were 8 lawsuits that went in. They were laughed out of the court. 1 went forward, but it's not going to go anywhere. And the best one was the one that Giuliani put forward, making all kinds of claims. And there's a video of Giuliani with the hair dye running down his cheek as he's talking, sweating and talking at the same time. Dyeing your hair isn't a problem, but on Giuliani, it really looks kind of bad. And he's getting 20 grand a day from Trump, or from money that Trump's putting forward for him to stay as a lawyer. He's going to keep doing that no matter what the hell he puts forward, whether he gets laughed out of court or not. This is who's representing the cheating and the stealing of the election of Donald Trump by Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. No, Rudolph Giuliani. That's what his name is. And maybe he becomes the Red-Nosed Reindeer. With that hair dye going astray, maybe he'll end up with a red nose because of that. I don't know. He's a funny guy. He used to be a serious lawyer. Now he's a joke, unfortunately. Donald, you picked a joke. Sorry. The joke's on you. Sorry. See you next time. Subscribe.